roll call, even if the clickers aren't ready. All right. Welcome everyone to Student Senate. We are going to begin with a roll call, and then once everyone gets their clickers on and ready, just make sure to buzz in so that we can have that when we start the agenda items. Okay. AC Welch? Here. President Becker? Here. Vipa Murphy? Here. VPSA Tombu? Treasurer Ercolani? Here. AT Weber? Here. Ace Chair Mystic? Services Coordinator Tibetamwa? Here. Conscience Chair Christensen? Senator Stallings? Here. Senator Christian? Here. Senator Dodimid? Here. She's here. Okay, thank you. Senator De Vega? Here. Senator Nelson? Here. Senator Gumijala? Here. Senator Jones? Here. Senator Mendel? Here. Senator Zernig? Here. Senator Nieto? Here. Senator Goldhammer? Is there a substitute? Senator McDowell? Here. Senator Tassar? Here. Senator Pietro Santa? Here. Senator Pollinger? Here. Senator Aveling? Hello. Senator Adhikari? Here. Senator Goswami? Here. ACES Co-Director DeRoche? ACES Co-Director Coleman? ACES Outreach Coordinator Preston? Green Fund Co-Chair Snodgrass? TA Gould? SHIC Delegate Cheslak? ISO Delegate No. All right, now we have to vote on the approval of the minutes from the last Student Senate meeting. So are all the clickers on and ready? All right, thank you. To vote on the approval, A is in favor, B is opposed, C is abstaining, and this is to just pass and confirm the minutes of the last Student Senate meeting. So if everyone could click in. We are looking for 18. Just two more. Just looking for one more so we can get these minutes approved so we can get started. Someone could try again in case you think it worked, but it didn't. Could everyone just try again one more time just to make sure? Because there may be a broken clicker if that's the case. Yeah. So we have. Okay, so we have one clicker that's not working. Yeah. Yeah, you guys just pass this. There we go. Beautiful. Thank you so much. All right, that is 18. Just for. Thank you. All right, everyone in favor? The approval of the minutes passes. Now we can get to public comments, announcements, and additional events. So if anyone has any public comments, announcements, or events, we could pass the mic to you. President Becker?
Just a brief reminder that we will be having the Senate the second Sunday of break, or perhaps the third Sunday of break. The Sunday right before we all come back, there will be a Senate that day, just so we're all on the same page.
Thank you very much. A.T. Weber.
Money workshop, tomorrow, 7:30, here. Please be there. Please tell your friends to be there. Please, I beg of you.
Thank you. Vipa Murphy.
We're going to be seeking submissions for the Grinnell Undergraduate Research Journal soon, probably Wednesday evening. So check your inbox for that, send in your papers.
Thank you. Do we have any further comments, announcements, or additional events? Senator Collinger?
This is just a reminder that Jeanette Moser, the head of Dining Hall Service Committee and extraordinaire, she has her office hours every other Tuesday outside of the grill at 4 p.m. I think that's really important to tell your constituents, simply because a lot of the times people bring up concerns about the dining hall, so it would be great if you could tell them that in your mini minutes. Thank you. Also, if you have any concerns about dining hall in general, feel free to relay them to us.
Thank you. Senator Pedro Santa?
Yeah, so I'll stand up. So after spring break, we're going to be doing a prom dress. Connecting Know is going to be doing a prom dress drive for students at the high school because their prom's April 13th. And so if you could let your constituents know if they have prom dresses to bring them back over spring break, and we'll have a place for them to put them in the JRC. We'll be sending out a Facebook post and other outreach efforts, but it'd be just really helpful if y'all could let your constituents know to bring back like prom dresses.
Thank you. Senator Zernig?
I have a follow-up to that.
Okay. Do you mind using a mic? Thank you.
A question for you. Are you also accepting suits or like men's clothing wear? Is that also one?
If you really want to, you can, but the school particularly asked for prom dresses. Yeah.
Thank you. VP-elect Wolek?
A quick reminder also, if you want to tell your constituents, they're up on PWeb, correct, Riley? On PWeb, there are mid-semester assessments, or like places for students to give input to their professors. That's a really cool thing that we're starting that allows for that communication to hopefully start earlier in the semester. So if you want to remind them to check out, PWeb mid-semester assessments, somewhere on there, I can send out more info on that.
Thank you. Senator Dodie-Mead?
So just to clarify, those are you assessing your professor or the other way around? Because I know that there's like...
It's you assessing your professor, not like a say whatever you want kind of thing, but it's a place for you to provide constructive criticism halfway through the semester for your professor to see from students.
Thank you. Senator Stallings?
One question of clarification, where would people take the dresses to?
In the JRC, there'll be a rack outside, right in front of the information desk, or potentially on the glass, kind of where the Girl Scout cookies are being sold, that area, there'll be something. And then potentially there also might be something on the second floor of the JRC, but we're still waiting for approval.
And the other thing is an event. Sorry, let me pull that email back up. So it's 2 weeks out, but it's right after spring break, so I wanted to go ahead and announce it, despite we don't know the location yet. But be on the lookout for the fact that on Wednesday, April 3rd at 4 p.m., there's going to be a graduate school experiences panel. It's going to have professors and students who have recently applied to and have been accepted to graduate schools, including alumni, to talk to first-generation low-income students particularly, but anyone who is thinking about applying to graduate school is welcome, to ask questions and things like that. And there's also going to be an event on April 10th at 7 p.m. Working with the CLS on particular graduate school components and learning about how to do those things. So if those are of interest to you, you are welcome to come.
Thank you. Contra Chair Christensen?
I'm trying to find the poster with the details right now, but I don't know if I have it. But on Tuesday evening, E. Patrick Johnson is going to be giving a talk, I think in here in 101. He's a really amazing Black queer theorist. I would highly recommend attending.
Thank you. Do we have any further? Oh, Senator DeVega?
Excuse me. Sorry, guys, I didn't catch the date and the time for the talk.
It's this Tuesday. I'm assuming it's around 7. I will try and I know I have the poster in my email and I'll send it out to everyone.
Thank you. Are there any further comments, announcements, or additional events? Okay, seeing none, we are now going to move on to the ACE budgets. So if ACE Chair Mystic, you could present those. Okay, could anyone else speak to the presentation of the ACE budgets? A.T. Weber, thank you very much.
Okay, so we had a lot of budgets today. Schick brought a budget for coloring books and sexual health, which will be taking place in the Wellness Lounge. Sounds like a fun event. Frank came for Frank after spring break. We approved it. Contra Dance we tabled for a variety of reasons. We need to figure out a space. We had some questions that still need to be resolved about certain costs. Block party we approved and we'll be talking about as a whole Senate because it's rather large. But yeah, it was a good budget. We added some funds for things like more durable utensils and turkey burgers. ACM came to talk about a professional development workshop. We reduced that just because we don't give out prizes, but otherwise approved it. The community meal we sent to services as an emergency budget. Disco we approved, and ISO we approved.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions on the budgets under $1,000 right now? If not, we can move right into the block party budget. Okay, block party budget. Can we get a mic to the presenters of this?
Hello, my name is Daria and this is Sydney, and we're the block party chairs for this year. So as you see, our budget's quite large, so I'm just going to go over the bulk of our budget. So we do things like the porta potties, the refrigerated truck, a large order from Hy-Vee that we have recorded from last year, and that's why we're making some adjustments, getting more turkey options, adding a few more things for food. We get pizza as well, in addition to the grilled items. And then we have a list of things from Amazon, such as like ping pong balls, dice, frisbees, cornhole bags. We also get an assortment of games, yard games if you remember from previous years. We were actually able to save quite a few games from last year, and we're hoping to continue that this year, where hopefully not every year we have to buy a whole new set of games. So we're looking into getting like durable items this year and then labeling them with SGA or Block Party Committee to make sure we get those saved for next year. We get all our meats from Dayton Meats. That's another good chunk of the budget. And then last year we ordered a root beer keg from Peachtree, which is a really big hit as an attractive non-alcoholic drink option. So we want to get 2 kegs this year. We're excited about that. The dumpster from the city of Grinnell. Chairs, tables, the photo booth, which was a big hit last year, a little money set aside for a live band, and then also last year they got at the last minute, but we included it in our budget this year for sunscreen and first aid kits to be proactive and prepared for a hot and sunny day like last year we had. Is there anything else you would like us to include right now?
No, that sounds good as for the presentation, and then there will be a time for questions regarding the budget if you guys are all done going over it. Yeah? Okay, are there any questions regarding this budget? Senator Pollinger?
So I thought last year there were the spike ball sets, and I was just wondering, do we know where they went?
Yeah, I have 2 spike ball sets left over from last year.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. So I added 2 more just out of popularity. They were a pretty hot commodity, but that's where that comes from. We saved the 2 sets from last year, but they were pretty popular.
Okay.
Also, a common thing we hear is that there's not enough like yard games.
Mhm.
That's a common thing we heard from people who are on committee and just talking to other people on campus. So
Okay.
just adding 2 more is just adding more other, like more things for people to do.
Thank you.
Senator Gumigiala.
Do you guys have any idea on the live band of like what you're thinking for that, or like which bands you were gonna ask?
So every year we do contact student bands to see who's interested, and that usually I believe is no cost to our student bands, but we do have one lead on a local band of Grinnell community members who was possibly interested. Otherwise, I know in the past they've made contact with an alumni band, that fell through towards the end last year. So no, we don't have a specific lead this year, but we put it in there because we would love to bring a band in, like from outside of Grinnell.
Thank you. Are there any more comments or questions regarding the presentation of this budget? Okay, do the presenters of this budget have anything you guys would like to add?
No, just thank you for having us, and we're working again this year. We're going to do a survey after spring break to see what more we can do to make Block Party as inclusive and fun for everyone. So heads up for that, and hopefully we can get good responses from that survey.
All right, thank you very much. Just last call, any comments or questions? AC Welch? Can we get a mic to Dylan? Thank you so much.
I just want to thank the block party hosts, Sydney and Daria, for all the work they've done to put this together. It's like super important this event is well organized, inclusive, and safe, and you've done a really great job so far, so thank you.
Thank you, Sydney and Daria. Seeing that there are no further comments or questions, we will now proceed to vote on this budget since it is over $1,000. So to vote, just remember good old clickers. A is in favor, B is opposed, C is abstaining, and this is for the $6,350.50 budget for Block Party. We're just waiting on a few more. If everyone could click the clickers.
There's always a few dud clickers in every set. If yours isn't working, just let me know.
We're gonna wait till 1 minute and then close the polls, because I think we got some dead ones.
If your clicker's dead, please let me know.
Just look at the screen
Is the screen on?
and see if it is working. And if it is not, please raise your hand and we will get you a new one. Oh! All right, the polls are now closed. And that budget passes with 100% in favor. So congratulations. Thank you, hosts, for presenting this. And we look forward to Block Party. All right, is that the last $100,000 ACE budget? That is the last ACE budget that we will have to vote on. ACE Chair Mystic, do you have anything left to add to this?
This is SPC, sorry. It's up, yeah. For today, we had a whole bunch of budgets, like we literally were in there for an hour just presenting, which is normally like way less. But we had a lot of budgets. We adapted a lot of them just for small things. For Frank, we added $50 for dietary options and $5 for cups. We tabled the swing into spring contra dance. We just need to find them a more accessible space, and I also need to meet with them to discuss more about how they're going to make this event more of an ACE event. Block Party, you guys just passed it. We added funds for more durable grill utensils as well as turkey meat options because there was only 2 meat options of vegan and beef. So we added turkey people who are in between. The professional development workshops we approved. Originally, they had 2 different food options, and we decided to go with Pagliai's because it was cheaper, could feed more people. I'm going to ask them to check in with me before their event just to make sure everything's okay. Econ department, a community meal was tabled and sent to services. Disco was approved, just adjusted to the regular pizza order, and ISO chip event refunded in full.
Thank you very much.
And I have a graph. Is this precursor? Yeah. Should you want a precursor this, Miles?
We have a SPC. Okay. Is this the correct graph?
Oh, yep, I just
Yeah,
labeled it wrong.
Okay.
Sorry.
All good.
So this week I worked with Sayla and Josh to get budget graphs so we can kind of estimate. This one should be for ACE, so not for SPC, but there's one for SPC. But just kind of show the red line shows if we pre-allocated our funds evenly across all 11 senates that we'll have. This is how it would look. The blue line is how we've been spending thus far. Just to kind of give a perception to senators how we're doing allocating our funds. And yeah, if you have any questions about the graphs or like want the graphs to be different or anything, let me know. But I think it's good to have perspective as to the rate at which we are spending so we can maximize events and programming for the student body.
Can I add?
Yes.
So I just wanted to add, for the first 2 weeks, we didn't really have as much large amounts of what is it? The first 2 weeks, we didn't have a lot of people just coming and trying to ask for money. It wasn't until this previous weekend and this weekend with Block Party we had a large amount of people coming. So we are seeing an uptake from the beginning of the semester, and I hope you guys keep coming to ACE Community to get money because we need to spend the money. So
Thank you very much. All right, seeing that there is no further commentary on the ACE budgets, we can now move on to the SPC and services. So, Joshua, read a mic to Joshua, please. Thank you. Thank you everyone for being so mobile. I know the space is not ideal, but
hi guys. So yeah, starting off with SPC, we had quite an uptick in SPC budgets. We had a lot of big ones. 2 of them are here to present. That would be MAPS and Contra Dance. We had an EXCO. We had 2 EXCO budgets come over. For one of them, we asked that they sort of return and plan a presentation because they were going to ask for above 1,000, so that should come after spring break. The rest, one was SACMAS. They had come last week, but we asked them to settle out like transportation issues. They did that. It was great. So we're really happy with that. If we can scroll down to services. The high school access program, they're doing this really cool thing in line with what Connecting Grinnellians is doing for with prom dresses. They're gonna book out RJs for 4 hours and just do free haircuts for students who can't afford them 2 days before prom, which is really cool. And then we have an invisible closet in the high school. The elementary school? Okay, yeah, we're doing an elementary school invisible closet. We have one in the high school. Essentially what that is it's sort of a closet where lower income students can come and just grab stuff free of, I don't know, at any time of the day you can walk in and check out stuff. It's had great success in the high school and the middle school, so it's time for the elementary school. Any questions?
thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Senator Mendel?
Yeah, I just have a question about the SPC graph in particular, about the allocation. I was just wondering, did that include for the March 10th and where it's currently at, did that include everything that SPC, the final amounts that you guys decided on, or does it not include like the maps and the contra dance since Senate hasn't approved those yet?
Well, that is if we were to approve everything, this is where we would be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions?
Also, please note we are underspending our services budget as usual. Just tell your constituents if they're thinking of service projects, it's okay to not have like fully flushed out ideas. A big part of our committee is we sort of help people along.
Thank you. Seeing that there are no further, Senator Zerny.
Just really quickly, I want to thank Cav, Miles, Joshua, and Selah for getting these graphs together. I think this is really helpful for, as a senator, to visualize the way that we're spending money and think about that. So I appreciate that a lot.
Thank you all. Okay, we are now going to move into the presentation of the budgets that are over $1,000. So the first one on the list is maps.
So this year, MAPS will be sending 6 students to Philadelphia during April 17th to 20th for the annual medical education conference. As we know, pre-med students at Grinnell don't have a lot of opportunities to attend conferences. And this will be one of the biggest conferences in the U.S. each year. And its purpose is to educate students of minority physicians' implicit biases in this current medical field. And students will be able to meet with admission officers from other schools. They will also get a chance to have a tour around a medical school in Philadelphia. They can also meet with MAPS representatives from other schools so that they can do some more outreach in the later years. So we believe it's very important opportunities for students, especially for the first years. If they can come back and share their experience with other pre-med students so that we can keep our club running well. And here we presented the budget for 6 students. So we included the registration fee for the conference and the fee for the MAPS students. And that will be added up to $1,542 total. And we're also applying funding from Wilson Centers that will cover costs for transportation, accommodation, plus some food. And currently there are 6 students going total. Yeah.
Thank you, Reese. Are there any questions? Senator Tizar, sorry.
How are you picking the 6 students that are going?
I forgot to mention. So we will be purchasing flight tickets for all these 6 students. We'll be, departing from Des Moines and arriving at Philadelphia airport. We'll be leaving on Tuesday afternoon and coming back on Saturday afternoon. So we will be staying there for 4 nights. We plan to, get reservations for Airbnb so that will be cheaper, and we can get food at the conference for other local restaurants.
Thank you. Senator Gumijela.
I just noticed that you said this was for 6 students, but in the outside contribution, it says that it's for 7. Do you know who that other person is who would be going, or?
So by the time
The mic's off. Thank you.
So now there's student drop out of that 7 students. So originally when we sent the budget, we said there were 7 students. So now there are 6.
Senator Zernick.
What was the selection process? Like, how did you decide on the 6 students?
So most of them are first years, and they attended our club meetings very frequently. So we kind of just let them write their essays for the Wilson Center application, and we will let the Will Center do some application, but essentially we're not excluding any students from going to this conference. So that's like all 6 students applying.
Thank you. AT Gold?
Do you know if the CLS Professional Development Fund is open to first years?
Yes, and we are aware that they could allocate up to 700 for each student, but I think first years are more willing to get funding from Wilson Center if they can, because they might need to spend that amount of money in the later 3 years, and we thought about that.
Thank you. Do we have any further comments or questions? Senator Gumijala?
Just a follow-up question. So you said that you had one student drop out, so does that mean there will be like an extra like $750, or like how does that work?
For the Wilson Center application, there will be 6, because by the time we turn in the application, it's 6 students. So, yeah, there won't be any extra $750.
Senator Dodimid?
So just to clarify, have you already got the money from the Wilson Center?
So we just turned in the application this weekend, and this application is pending. So we hopefully we will get funding within the next 2 weeks.
Thank you.
So the money is not secure.
Senator Dodimid?
So you've applied for funding for 7 people from the Wilson Center?
We applied for 6 students. That's it.
Thank you. Any further questions regarding this budget? Senator Zernig?
So will you be paying the registration fees before, when will you be paying the registration fees?
The deadline is the end of March, so anytime before that should be fine. Later than that, there will be some extra registration fees. So as long as we get the funding from SGA, we'll be paying that up.
Thank you. Senator Zernig?
Follow up, will you be waiting until after you've received funding from the Wilson Center? Will you know if you've received the funding from the Wilson Center before you pay the registration fee?
We will be communicating with Wilson Center and see how long would it take them to make a decision. And I think since we have sent emails to them, and they said probably before the end of March, so we should be able to secure funds from Wilson Center and then have the registration fee covered for the conference.
Thank you. Senator Nieto?
So are the students all aware that they'll be missing 3 days of classes, and are they okay with that?
Yes, so we advise them to talk to their professors about missing classes and labs, so they're aware of missing 3 days classes. Yeah.
Thank you. Senator Zernig?
Sorry. I'm not personally familiar with getting funding from the Wilson Center, so if you or anyone could speak to, like, if there's a possibility that funding is denied.
So actually, forgot to mention, we've been applying to this Wilson funding for like the last 2 or 3 years, and last year we got 5,000 for 5 people. And this year it's a little bit different. So we've been going to conference for at least 3 years, and in the past, it's pretty successful to get funding from Wilson Center and as well as SGA, of course. And if it is denied, the possibility will be that like fewer people will be going. So then we'll probably adjust the amount of registration fee we're applying from SGA, probably like from 6 to 5 or even to 4 So hopefully right now should be getting 6 people, like 6 people accommodation fee from Wilson Center, but if it's 5, then we will change that.
Thank you. Are there any further questions regarding this budget? Lacey Welch?
Can I motion to approve this budget vote to approve this budget on the condition that the Wilson Center funding is given?
Yes. So we have a motion to approve this budget on the condition that the Wilson Center approves the funding request. Does anyone second this motion? Senator Pedro Santa? Okay, all those in favor, just raise your hands. All those opposed? Please raise your hands nice and high. All those abstaining? All right, so that motion passes. We are now going to vote on that. And this is a vote to approve this budget on the condition that the funding from the Wilson Center gets approved. A is in favor, B is opposed, C is abstaining. And once again, this is a motion to approve the budget on the conditions that the Wilson Center says okay. So we have 18. The polls are now closed. With 17 in favor and 1 opposing, that passes. So what this means is that SGA will provide funding given that the Wilson Center will approve your funding request. Thank you. Are there any further questions regarding this? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much for the presentation of that budget. We will now move on to the presentation from Contradance. So could the presenters of this budget, hello, could we get a mic to them? And we're just going to pull up the budget shortly.
Hello. Hi, I'm Sophie, and I'm one of the leaders of Contradance. This is Cameron, who's my co-leader. So this budget is for a Contradance trip to a dance weekend at Oberlin College. It's the weekend after spring break. This is the 3rd year that we have gone to this dance weekend, and it's run by the Oberlin College student dance, Contradance organization. So it's a really good opportunity to network and interact with other college-age dancers, and it's people come in from all over the country to go to this dance, and they have really fun bands and whatnot. So the funds here, we have reserved a campus van and a car. So the fees for that is 50 cents per mile and 30 cents per mile, so calculated with the mileage to Oberlin, Ohio. And that includes gas money, and we have, in the past, they've wanted 2 to 3 certified drivers for each van, which we already have, and are having a couple more people apply to be certified just as backups. Last year, we didn't account for toll money, so this is an estimation based on the tolls we paid last year for both cars, driving there and back. And registration fees is $30 per student, and for 12 students is like the maximum number that we can fit having a van and a car. And the way that we chose those people was we sent out an interest form, and it was basically a first come, first serve. So the people that were interested filled out the form, and we ended up only really having 12, so that worked out that we didn't have to turn anyone away. For housing in Oberlin, they provide housing through the campus. We've in the past stayed on the floors in basically the equivalent of dorm lounges, so they do that for free, and food would be provided per each student.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions regarding the presentation of this budget? Senator Collinger?
I didn't know if for the toll money, it was for specifically like 2 cars, but is there a different toll for like, say if it's a van?
I think, my understanding, I'm not from a state that does toll roads, so I'm a little bit sketchy on how that works. I think my understanding is that like cars and vans are in the same category, and it's only when you get like more wheels on the vehicle that the prices go up. Okay.
So, I live in Ohio, and tolls in Ohio, you do not get charged if like extra if it's a van, unless it's like a minibus, like a bus, which it's not. So yeah, the tolls wouldn't be.
It's like a campus minivan.
Then yeah, it should be the same as a car, or it will be the same as a car. Do we have any more questions? Senator Gumijala?
Did you say you had an application process to decide like which students go on this trip?
It was a Google form that was like, would you like to attend, was the question. So that's just how we found out who wanted to go with us.
And how did you advertise that?
Through our email list.
Thank you.
Senator Nieto?
Did you guys get approval from the college to take the van and the car out of state?
We have done this in the past 2 years and they've approved that. I haven't received anything indicating that they don't want us to go out of state. With the rental process, I think it's my understanding that they contact you if there's something that needs to be changed about the car rental. So I haven't received any note. Like, for my understanding, I think it seems like they're okay with it. And we have done this the past 2 years as well, using campus vehicles.
Thank you. Services Coordinator Tibetamwa?
Just for context, we found this out also recently that if you're taking a campus car or van out of state, they make you sign a waiver because again, insurance is only within the state. So it's all right. The college, that lies on the college. We bear no responsibility for that.
Thank you. Senator Aveling?
Can I ask what the reasoning was for a campus van and a car instead of 2 or 3 campus cars, which would be significantly cheaper?
That was what was available.
Thank you.
Do we have any further? Oh, AC Welch?
Motion to previous question.
Thank you. Do I see anyone seconding that? I see Senator Nieto. All those in favor? Please raise your hand. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Okay, we are now moving into the voting procedure for this budget, and this is to approve a budget of $1,177 for Contra Dance and their trip to Oberlin, Ohio. All right, the polls are now closed. And with all in favor, your budget passes. Congratulations. Enjoy Ohio. All right, so that covers all the budgets for today. So now we're going to move on to agenda item number 7, which is the confirmation of Quinn Ercolani as Administrative Coordinator for the 2019-2020 academic year.
So Quinn has been an involved member of SGA since his first semester and has participated in representing the interests of the student body in various capacities since, including as a senator, assistant treasurer, alt-break coordinator, union president, and as treasurer. His experience as the SGA treasurer and alt-break coordinator has proven his commitment to detail and organizational ability. And as the union president, alt-break coordinator, and SGA treasurer, he has had to navigate Grinnell administration and resources, which will be critical for the position of administrative coordinator. Overall, Quinn's invaluable perspective and understanding of SGA's role on campus, strengths and weaknesses, and his consistent availability and approachability in his many roles make him an ideal candidate for AC. Could we give a little bit of time after each rationale for appointees to speak to their
Yes.
appointment? Okay.
Hi, everyone. So as I'm sure many of us are kind of uncomfortable speaking to what we have done in our qualifications. I think Regina talked about what I've done on this campus in a pretty holistic way. SGA is something that, as everyone in this room knows, is a very important part of life on Grinnell's campus, like even if it's in the small ways that we don't really see day to day. And to be the administrative coordinator would be something that I would be allowed to continue some of the work that I've been working on this semester and this year with people like Amanda and Miles, and continue, building up the reputation that SGA has on this campus as being, a good organization, something that is beneficial to the workings of the student body, and I appreciate your consideration and the nomination of the exec select.
Thank you. President-elect Logan, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I would love to open it up for questions.
Okay, any questions regarding this confirmation? Or comments? Quinn?
I just want to clarify that there is a portion, or I wanted to ask if there would be a portion to have the Senate discuss with the candidates not in the room.
Yes, you can leave. Oh, sorry, that came out so passive-aggressive. That is not what I meant.
Sorry, to clarify, I meant like a time to ask the candidates questions potentially directly, and then a separate portion when they're not in the room for the Senate to discuss for you.
Right, I got you. So you don't have to leave. That is not what I meant. Right now, we're going to open up the space to ask any questions while Quinn is in the room, and then there will be a period where he can exit the room. So does anyone have any questions? President Becker?
Do you have any particular goals as the administrative coordinator for next year that you would like to address before the Senate, or anything you're interested in looking into?
Yes. So this is something that Miles and I have had in our work reports for many weeks now. We're working on really building the institutional memory of the Student Government Association, as well as reforming our constitution, so that way it's a little bit easier to read. There aren't any places where there's ambiguous language, so we're more in line with what governing documents should actually be. And that brings with it some time to course correct and some things that need to be done over longer periods of time. So that primary goal would be to continue that work and to make sure that it is implemented in a way that is most beneficial to the Student Government Association.
Thank you. Any further questions for Quinn? Seeing none, you may now depart the atmosphere as we have a time. I'm so sorry for how that came out. I wasn't trying to kick you out. We are now going to have a time where we can discuss this appointment where the candidate is not in the room. Where the door is closed. Cool, cool, cool. Do we have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding this appointment? Senator Zernig?
As a senator, I've really appreciated Quinn's knowledge and understanding of the Constitution and just knowledge about SGA in general. I think he's a great resource. For me as a senator, I found that to be true, and so I think he would be great in this position.
Thank you. Senator Stallings?
Yeah, I was just going to say basically the same thing, echoing that. I think Quinn's dedication to this organization is extremely admirable, and I'm not surprised that we're not going to have a lot of discussion about his appointment because he is definitely very, very deserving.
Thank you. Any further comments? Senator Zernig?
Previous question?
So we have a motion to vote on this confirmation, seconded by Senator Jones. All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? All right, the polls are now open, and this is to confirm Quinn Ercolani as AC for next year. All right. And with a unanimous in favor, Quinn Ercolani is the, oh, he is not here to hear this. Quinn Ercolani is the administrative coordinator for the 2019-2020 academic year. Congratulations. Thank you all very much. Just a heads up is that I would like to ask if a candidate is in question of being appointed, please exit the space when it is time for your confirmation, just to not have any bias, I guess we can call that. But yeah, thank you, Quinn. Next, we will move on to the confirmation of Oscar Buchanan as the Assistant Treasurer for the 2019-2020 academic year and Treasurer for the 2020-2021 academic year. President-elect Logan. Or no, I'm sorry, Assistant Treasurer Weber.
Hey, y'all. So I'm just going to read this off real quick. So we've nominated Oscar Buchanan, right here, for Assistant Treasurer, and hope that you will seriously consider approving this nomination. Oscar is detail-oriented, practical, and rational, and I was very impressed by both the insight he provided in his application and the meticulous attention that he demonstrated to the minutiae of the job during his interview. As a CA and a leader on campus, Oscar has demonstrated the responsibility, dedication, and accountability that I think are vital to the office of Treasurer. Given the knowledge that I have gained about my position this year so far, I think that Oscar is incredibly well equipped to take on this responsibility and will provide a set of perspectives and abilities that I think will suit the Treasurer's office very well in the upcoming 2 years.
Thank you very much. Oscar, would you like to speak to your confirmation, or would you like to move into a question and answer period?
Let's just move to question and answer.
Sounds good. Do we have any questions for Oscar Buchanan? President Becker.
Do you have any goals or anything you're looking to accomplish in the coming year that you'd like to talk about?
So, from what I understand of the Office of the Treasurer right now, my goals align really well with what Amanda is seeking to do, especially with increasing the financial records and sort of the memory for student organizations on campus so that we can budget our money better, more efficiently.
Thank you. Senator Christensen? Nope, Christian. Senator June? Yeah. Sorry, I can't read it. Oh, okay.
Hi. I was wondering if you had any experience managing big budgets.
That's a good question. So this past year, I've been one of the co-leaders in GUAC, the Grinnell United Activist Collective, and through Res Life and through SGA, particularly Services and Diversity and Outreach, we've applied for, I think, a little over $1,000, and I've helped oversee that and work with us. Work with like the students who are running the events through that. The other budget I've overseen is the $6 per resident I have as a CA each semester, and that like I meet with my RLC to oversee that.
E.T. Weber?
I don't want to, that was a good answer, but also I would like to mention that I'm an English-Russian double major. I like to think I've done an okay job so far. I think mostly this job is about keeping an open mind and being willing to learn. And I think that Oscar will be able to do both of those things very well.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions for Oscar? Seeing none, Oscar, bye-bye. See you in a bit. We are now going to move into open comments and questions without Oscar present in the room. Treasurer Ercolani?
I'd just like to say that as someone who was not involved in this hiring process but has heard from my assistant treasurer about Oscar and his qualifications that he seems like he would do a wonderful job in this position, and I wholeheartedly support his candidacy. And also to the question of budgets, I mean, I think there are very few people on this campus that have experience with dealing with anywhere close to the amount of money that SGA has. And as Amanda said, it's about keeping an open mind and, you know, relying on the person who has come before you and the people that are coming after you to be good at their jobs and to really build that institutional basis for being able to execute the job properly.
Thank you. President Becker?
I also am really pleased by this nomination. I've worked with Oscar in a limited capacity, but I've also heard in discussions with Amanda, and in my institutional memory search through like in the semester, as well as just like the kind of understanding I have of SGA as a whole, the treasurer's office has not always been fulfilled to its greatest capacity. And there have been rocky roads, but I think I'm really pleased about this nomination and the state leaves the treasurer's office in for the next 2 years.
Thank you. Senator Nieto?
Yeah, just a question. I'm curious as to how many people apply for the position, if I could know.
This was the least that we had. I think we had just Oscar apply. When we were looking over the applications, I asked Amanda what her opinion was on whether we should extend the application process or if we should close it on the date that we told the student body that we would. And Amanda, on the face of the application, felt really confident in Oscar's capabilities. I think she might be able to speak to this more than I would just in her experience, but we felt really confident moving forward with the confirmation process when we got his application.
Senator Aveling?
I had the opportunity.
Nope.
Yeah, it's on. Yes. Thank you.
How about now? Awesome. I've had the opportunity to work directly with Oscar as part of the United Activist Collective, and I think you would have a really hard time finding anyone more qualified or competent for this position. He just gets things done. He's always on top of logistics. If there's something that needs to be done, he's the first one to get on top of that. He has organized project houses, budgets. I don't think you could find anyone better. Like, I have full faith in this.
Thank you. Treasurer Ercolani?
Just a slight note on the application process for the assistant treasurer's office. Historically, it is always the office with the least number of applicants because of the nature of the position as a 2-year term. It doesn't allow for a lot of flexibility, and it really creates a niche opportunity for certain people to like get involved. And you know, it almost always like brings itself to the result of having a select few highly qualified candidates. And I think that like it may be more select in this year than it has been in other years, but I don't think the quality has diminished at all.
Thank you. Do we see VPSA Tombu?
I think in the future it would be better to extend the deadline because having just one person, in my opinion, is like applying for something is just like not good enough.
Thank you. A.T. Weber?
Yeah, I think I would just like to say again, I think Oscar is an incredible candidate, and I'm really happy with this appointment. It would have been nice to have extended the deadline, I recognize. And I think there was more complexity to the conversations that we had than is necessarily easily conveyed about this position in particular. But I will say that I have full faith in Oscar, even as the only applicant. And like, I wish you could all have just been in on this interview because I was astonished. I think it was really, really wonderful. But yeah, I think moving forward, extending the deadline is good. But that said, I have full faith in this candidate.
Thank you. Senator Stallings?
Yeah, just to, I think, further kind of echo what's being said about Oscar here and why I also believe that he's a very qualified candidate. Having only met him last year and working on several group projects with him, I've never worked in a group where I thought there was someone else who was also doing a lot of work. But I have to say that that was definitely a really nice instance of that. And he's a total organization person and like absolutely commits to deadlines and has like, is awesome to work with, I would have to say. So if he was the only candidate, I think that's okay because I think he would have been the best one anyways.
President Becker?
So two things. One, to the point of extending the deadline, I think as I spoke earlier about Rocky Roads and the Treasurer's Office, having one applicant is how you get to Rocky Roads and the Treasurer's Office. But like again, I'm like super happy with Oscar confirmation. And I think to the point of moving forward, I think having been through the confirmation process last year and then being tangential to the hiring process this year, in my everlasting pursuit for institutional memory, I think the formation of just kind of like a guideline document for this process I think would be incredibly useful. I think like I know when I was going through the process of coming up with nominations, like this is really unlike any other experience that I had going into it, and so oftentimes like it feels difficult saying like, oh well you should have done this when it's like just such an entirely new experience. And so I think I'm hoping to have the current cab and the new cab work together to kind of draft recommendations for subsequent cabinets so that they know going in like, oh man, this worked well, or like this didn't work well, because I think like there are a lot of things about my hiring process as well that I think like I wish I could have done better, and so I think just like trying to prepare future executives and cabinets for hiring processes is something that I'm looking into. But again, I think Oscar's candidacy is great, and I'm very excited.
Thank you. AC Welch?
Motion to previous question.
Seconded by Senator Jones. All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? Okay, just a reminder that you have to say in favor, opposed, or abstaining. Right now, we're not totaling to the full. Pardon? Okay, yeah, that's just one, but we were missing at least 5. So please vote in favor, opposed, or abstaining, or else this can't go on. From what we had, most were in favor. The polls are now open. This is to vote on the confirmation of Oscar Buchanan, excuse me, for the assistant treasurer, and then treasurer for the next 2 years. A is in favor, B is opposed, C is abstaining. We're looking for 18. Thank you all. And with all in favor, that confirmation passes. Oscar, please come back. Congratulations on your appointment for Assistant Treasurer and Treasurer for the next 2 academic years. Thank you all. Next, we will move on to the confirmation of Eric Kasperzik as the Services Coordinator for the 2019-2020 academic year. Vipa, was that a dab? A? Okay, go ahead.
It's cold season out here, so we really just kind of. Eric Kasperzik was a weekend co-leader where he managed a $15,000 budget to providing sub-free programming for all students on campus. He was also a CA, which gave him the formal and informal training needed to have productive interpersonal relationships with the leaders of student organizations. These 2 positions also connected Eric with many different groups and stakeholders in student life, and he shared with us a passion and plan for collaboration as services coordinator. And as a longstanding member of the Grinnell and Prison program, he has a personal experience doing service in our community, as well as a vision to build a meaningful, mutually beneficial, and respectful relationship between the college and the people of Grinnell.
We look forward to having his fresh perspective and impact-oriented work ethic as a part of this multifaceted role, pending your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing that Eric is not here, are you comfortable with taking questions regarding this confirmation?
Yes.
Thank you very much. We will now open up discussion. Senator Collinger.
What specific goals or like events was he thinking about having? Do you know?
One of the things that was really awesome when we were talking to Eric, so Eric's abroad this year, and we asked him about specific goals, and he expressed a really careful consciousness of saying, I don't know what the students are going to be wanting exactly, and I feel uncomfortable going and making these large claims for what he wants when he returns, but he seemed like he had a really deep investment in getting back in touch with what's happening with students on campus and accordingly planning events based on that, and didn't want to just come out and say this is what he feels like students will definitely be wanting.
President-elect Logan.
I think what I really appreciated about Eric when we interviewed him was his ability to paint a vision of an SPC and services process that was really cognizant of how the events would fit into Grinnell's campus. So he was really interested in looking at process, in how we make sure lots of people are taking advantage of the SPC and services budget, how we make sure that people are putting together budgets that are well-informed, well-prepared for committee, and will serve a good purpose within the student body. I think that was the thing that really stood out for me, and I'm working on getting his application back up so that if anyone has more questions, I can speak to more specifics about the things that he talked about.
Senator Collinger.
Okay, yikes, sorry. I also had a question, since he is currently abroad and a lot of the times you do train the specific cabinet position, like in the spring, like how would he be trained, and like what is going on in that process?
Yeah, go for it.
I think that this is one of those considerations that we have to take into account, as we'll talk about more when we talk about the split cabinet positions. We are going to invest a lot of time in training over the summer. We're going to work closely with Joshua to make sure that the learning curve is as smooth as possible. And I think that having been on a cabinet, I have a good understanding of the things that can make the learning curve tricky. I think that it's hard to find the resources around the school that you need to do your job. Like, who do I talk to about this? Who do I talk to about that? And also just like little technical things about getting started. And I think that the execs will do everything we need to this semester to prepare it in a way so that he isn't coming back and having to ask questions, every time, like, where do I find this? Where do I find that? With all of our candidates, we're planning on getting them the resources that they need up front so that we can start from a place of kind of feeling like they have their feet on the ground. You might be able to speak to what it'll be like to train with someone abroad.
So in my experience, personally, taking over this role, I think not too much importance was placed in like face-to-face contact. What would have really helped me was like a little guide document of these are the most important things throughout the year. These are the people who you go to for these resources. Because you do forget. It's great to have the person there, but they graduate and you come back after the summer. So what I'm planning on doing is writing sort of a guide doc of like brief, these are the things you need to get done. These are the things you might want to get done. These are the people you must talk to. And I'm pretty sure most of cabinet has been going in that direction this year as we think about institutional memory.
Do we have any further questions regarding this confirmation? VPA-elect Wallach, do you have anything you would like to add?
I was just going to throw out there that to answer, I guess, Elizabeth's question from earlier really quickly, that one thing that I also loved that Eric talked about was really clear guidelines for how funding would be determined in terms of impact. And that was a very cool thing of talking about, and especially being a weekend co-chair and being a CA and really understanding what students need is ensuring that like when we're talking about student programming and student events, that it's
really impactful and it's reaching a lot of people and filling a need in the student body. But other than that, I'm good to go.
Thank you. Seeing that there are no further comments or questions, are we comfortable moving into the voting procedure? Okay, we're going to move into the voting procedure. So the polls are now open, and excuse me, this is for the confirmation of Eric Kasperzik as the services coordinator for the 2019-2020 academic year. A is in favor, B is opposed, C is abstaining. The polls are now closed, and with all in favor, that confirmation passes. Congratulations to Eric. Now we will move into a discussion topic on the viability of split-term cabinet positions.
Hi everyone, I'm going to be taking over for presiding so that Lana can feel free to speak about the viability of split-term cabinet members, herself being one nominee as such. So with that, I believe this is brought by the executives-elect. So I believe if they would like to start discussing this, feel free.
So what we added to the agenda was the discussion topic on the constitutionality of split-term positions, and our intention was to try to determine whether or not these are constitutional in the first place, so that we weren't here late talking about the merits if we didn't know if we could do it at all. And then we were planning on going into the discussion of the merits of split-term cabinet positions, specifically for this year, given the context of these specific candidates. So we didn't add this. Did someone else?
Was this one? This was Miles then? Oh, okay, Miles. You want to start then? Sorry for the confusion there.
So I reserve a few confusions about the nature of split-term positions. I've prepared like a written statement here, so I'm just going to go through this. And how normalizing such an occurrence would prove detrimental to the student body, to whom we represent in an active service, as is outlined in Article 2 of the Constitution. First, it is notable that within current limitations, the executives are clearly constitutionally mandated to remain on campus for the duration of their term. Additionally, it is unwritten policy and common knowledge that the same limitations apply to both of the treasurers. This leaves us with half the cabinet being required to remain on campus through the academic year. Previous iterations of the student body deemed it necessary for the positions, and arguably for the remaining 5 positions of cabinet as well. To this point, the appointment of one split position, and especially 3, would put these individuals at a disadvantage. Having to come back a week early during the winter break so as to reconstruct working relationships, get these individuals up to speed on projects that preceded them, and institutionalize them into the workings of cabinet would put unnecessary strain on these members. I speak to this from experience as the technical advisor, during which time I worked closely with the services coordinator that split the position in the 2016-2017 academic year, my second year. During that time, I worked with them both and ITS to develop a replacement for OrgSync, our previous student organization management software. ITS had developed a Grinnell Share application that handled the same functionality, a process that lasted the entire first semester. Once the transition took place, ITS and I were met with significant setbacks in getting the second services chair up to speed, thus delaying the rollout into the fall semester of my third year. Had the position been filled consistently throughout this year, I'm confident that the application would have been developed and implemented in a more timely fashion. While I cannot speak to every facet of these positions, I present this as an example of an instance in which the communication between chairs, which had been promised in the fall, did not occur, and our organization was rendered less effective. Second, Article 2 of the Constitution outlines one of the key objectives of the Student Government Association as representing students. One of the ways in which this is achieved is through engagement with the first-year class. First-year council was designed for this very specific purpose, where these students are enabled to engage and establish a relationship with the diversity and outreach coordinator throughout the first semester. This relationship is intended to be shifted onto the class ambassadors once they are selected in the spring, though the opportunity to maintain a direct line of communication between cabinet and first years is severed in the event of a split semester appointment. This decreases the accessibility and efficacy of our organization through limited understanding of our constituency. Third, a qualitative shift in the capacity of a cabinet officer is experienced over time and exposure to the position. Someone who has held the position for a semester would have a more holistic understanding of the nature of that position than a split-term semester appointment necessarily would. This plays directly to the point of disadvantaging the 5 cabinet members who are guaranteed to cross over. Fourth, a point regarding the financing of these positions. All 3, and arguably any cabinet position, spend some amount of time preparing to assume the role, as well as preparation between semesters. I myself, as well as many other cabinet members, were allocated time over the summer to work, during which time we were eligible for compensation for time spent working away from campus. Due to college payroll policies, we are unable of paying students during the term in which they are abroad. This means that the scheduling of concerts for the spring semester cannot happen until the end of the fall semester, leaving a limited time for some acts to be booked. This means that the scheduling of all campus events in the spring semester cannot happen until the end of the fall semester, at which time most student groups will be away from campus and their email. This means that planning for the DOC position cannot occur until after the fall semester ends and the winter break begins. Now, I know the argument can be made that the fall semester positions can do the planning for them. However, this leaves very little work for the spring chair to be doing, and thus complicating the delineation between terms. Another argument could be made that the students abroad could do their planning without compensation, but who are we to select for positions based on a student's financial security? Additionally, according to our definition of split term in this scenario, we cannot have 2 people concurrently holding a role, and thus paying for training during the transition is impossible, only furthering the financial complexities of this issue. Fifth, the rate of occurrence is considerably lower than was mentioned last week. In the wake of that discussion, I decided to sift through 15 years of emails in the president's inbox to determine the cabinet composition for the last decade and a half, and as to how often these occur. The resulting search yielded a complete list for 14 of the last 15 years, during which time 127 cabinet positions were appointed, 124 of which were for the full academic year. The services coordinator was split in the 2011-2012 and 2016-2017, and the ACE chair was split in 2017-2018, though admittedly it was a co-chair position, and the other chair was there for the full academic year. This means that 98 positions have been filled with full-term appointments in the last 15 years. Sixth, and finally, I promise. Article 2 of the Constitution outlines one of our basic charges as representing students. Given the number and nature of the aforementioned concerns, I worry that by allowing for split semester positions, we decrease the effectiveness and consequently our accessibility as an organization. Though I see the point that this is potentially limiting the involvement of third years who opt to go abroad from positions on the SGA cabinet, I worry that this comes at the cost of those 1,400 students who remain on campus and whom we are tasked to represent. Whether that's through decreased effectiveness of CAB positions that are split at semester, or a lack of communal understanding as to who is and who is not within SGA, I'm concerned that we would be doing a disservice to both our guiding document and the student body as a whole. Again, I would like to reiterate that these concerns stem not from the candidates themselves, nor from a general lack of faith in the execs-elect, but from a point of 3 years' experience working with cabinets, from a point as an elected representative, and from a point as someone who cares deeply about the longevity, efficacy, and integrity of the Student Government Association.
All right. President-elect Logan.
I obviously first have to acknowledge that I do not have a written statement. I also want to, because we're about to talk about fundamental possible disagreements about how SGA should be structured, I want to start by recognizing that even though I disagree deeply with Miles or President Becker's analysis of the situation, I respect that he has insight and experience and a voice worth listening to this, and I'm glad that he has shared it, and I don't take this in a way that is at the exec-elects, and I hope that all of the cabinet appointees that we have in the room listen to him, because I know that he does not mean it as a shot at any of the U.S. candidates. I want to start by saying that ultimately one of the SGA executives' constitutional responsibilities is to oversee cabinet members and to be responsible for their success. We as execs take that responsibility incredibly seriously, not just for split semester positions, but for our appointees as a whole. We understand that we have a responsibility to the people that we're appointing to make sure that they have the most successful year that they can have. And we do absolutely have a responsibility to the student body to make sure that not any arbitrary thing about, you know, an SGA person should have this many years of experience or this many years of experience, or you should be on campus, or you should be here for just for the part that you're serving. Or you should be, you know, totally focused on SGA as some people are, that's my experience. But I also know I worked with cabinet members that were juggling sports, that were juggling other extracurriculars, that I think that I understand, I really understand the concern about split positions, and I think that every year that they are proposed, they should be analyzed carefully. Very, very carefully. You should be asking your execs what's your plan. And that's why we are glad that you guys asked us this, because it allowed us more time to go back to the drawing board and figure out exactly how we were going to overcome each challenge. And I think that if we get to talking to the merits of each of these positions specifically, we do have something written for that, but I don't want to jump into that while we're on Miles' discussion topic. Ultimately, I believe, and this is what I believe, that it's the leadership of executives, it's the experience and commitment of cabinet members, and it's all of our commitment to students and the student experience that makes a year successful. There are so many different factors that you have to weigh when you're appointing a cabinet, and we have weighed a lot of them. We are confident, I'm deeply, deeply confident that with these people, we have the leadership and the experience and the commitment to the work and to the students to make it happen. If you guys think that split positions themselves fundamentally are always in every situation not a viable option for the student body, that's the reason that we bring it to Senate. We want to get your guys' understanding of what is right for students. But at some point in the past, a campus council has passed a bylaw because they believed it was necessary and proper to make sure that we have qualified candidates every year in every one of these roles that you might need to allow sometimes for split positions, because you have to think about it. You need leadership experience in a lot of these roles. You might be managing large budgets, you might be overseeing teams, and it's often times that you're going to be a third year or a fourth year that you are going to be having that experience and ready to join a cabinet. And I can imagine a campus council in the past coming up against that, and like you guys are talking about concerns over the number of people that you can consider. If we cut down and basically said we can take out a large pool of third years who study abroad and not consider them at all, that's why I'm convinced that a campus council in the past has thought that it was actually necessary to allow, not always recommend, but allow for the consideration of split positions. That's my take on it. I've heard a lot of other senators take on it this week, and I'm really glad for everyone that's shared their time with us. But if there's any other stuff that hasn't been hit on, I would love to hear more. I do want you guys to know, though, that after this discussion, we are planning on going into a presentation about the constitutionality, just so that we can make sure that we're clear on that, and that we will have more very specific plans for each of the positions and the rationales in general for split semester positions in our situation, our context this year. That's what I got.
Yes, VP Salek. Sorry, can we get a mic to VP Salek and on, please? Over here at this table, thanks.
Okay. First of Miles, thanks for the statement. Can I ask for that to be sent to everyone? As a reference, I appreciate that you structured your points, and that gives us an opportunity to address them categorically. I do think the concerns you've raised are valid, and there's something for us to think about. My only regret is that my understanding of the relationship between executives elect and executives is that, like you said, there would be assistance in the hiring process. These are concerns that we will have to address with our prospective cabinet in detail, and I intend to. I don't think these are problems that are unsolvable. They definitely can be worked on, but I just wish we'd known sooner. Nevertheless, we will continue to work with whatever we get and whoever we get to work with to solve some of these problems.
All right, next, if I could just see the hands of people who are up so that I make sure not to miss you the next time. Great, I saw Senator Donovan first.
If you don't mind me mentioning our conversation that we had before in the Grinnell. After last week's meeting, I spoke with Regina about my concerns about splitting positions and how that would kind of work. When I was thinking about, for example, splitting and then come the spring when there comes for the next academic year and someone is in trying to be trained, but the person training hasn't had more than a month's experience working that position, I don't know if they'd then be qualified to then be able to train like the year after, and the consistency of like SGA over the next years, like not considering just next year but the year after. I kind of questioned how well that would kind of work. If you don't mind me saying about your experience and how you said that you struggled at the beginning of last semester and it took you almost the full semester to really understand what you wanted to do as the DOC, and because of Regina's experience in saying that it took her a full semester to understand the role, if someone is only doing one term and it takes someone the entirety of the term to understand the inner workings of the role and like be able to do it to the fullest of their capabilities, then having someone only there for that one term means that it's just an entire learning curve, but they never reach their peak and they won't be able to like adequately do their job, like even as much as they want to. And it's not to say anything about like particular candidates running, because I'm friends with both of them and I believe fully in their ability. It's just wondering like how well things can continue through SGA and how the actual process can be like continued on forward, like not just looking at the next academic year, but years beyond that. But yeah, that was my opinion.
Next, I saw Senator Nelson. Yeah, do you want to respond?
Yeah,
great. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I wanted to say again, thank you for taking time to like sit with me after Senate. That shit went late already. One of the things I was talking about with my experience as having been on a cabinet was that it's not that it is an essential aspect of the job that it takes a semester to understand it. It's that my training involved going to a few meetings a week for a few weeks in the spring semester. So I went to the Friday meetings, to the Monday meetings, to a meeting or two with Mari and the past DOC who was Hannah. So I guess what I'm saying is not that it's essential that it takes that long, it's that I was trained in such a way where I only understood how a cabinet meeting goes and how 2 meetings with Mari go. And I think that actually having that experience really shapes what we're thinking about training should look like in future years, so that people aren't just learning what it's like to go through the motions in a meeting, but like Joshua was saying, some of the biggest part of the learning curve is just knowing who to talk to, what the resources are. We, I think, need to get serious about training and institutional memory and being more proactive in our training as execs and as the cabinet. And I think that that is something that we're really committed to.
Senator Nelson.
Yeah, so I just like, from my perspective, what I can see are like 2 fundamental questions being, would the jobs specifically, like functionally, would they work with 2 people working different terms? And if it would financially be viable to change over the payment structures and the way that training works. And so I guess I would just like to invite people who actually have the backgrounds in how those specific jobs work, or any specific appointed job like this works, and if they think that would be functionally allowable, as well as treasurer office, et cetera, who could maybe talk to the financial aspect with a little bit more like factual knowledge so that we can ground this discussion a little more. I think that would be really useful.
Would you like to yield to Treasurer Arcolani?
Oh, yes, I yield.
So there are some difficulties in, that I think President Becker pointed out in his speech regarding how training would work. However, we've done something slightly different this semester where we've allocated for each position, or for each appointee, I should say, 20 hours of training wages for the remainder of the semester, which would allow for them to train as much as possible. This is more than double what it has been in previous years. In order to make sure that the training process is as smooth and efficient this semester as possible. Obviously, when we were going through that, we didn't know that this was going to be the case, that there were going to be so many split positions. However, like, we're able to adapt to that, to the fact that like this is going to provide people, just consequently, without having prior knowledge, a greater ability to train this semester than they have in the past. However, again, the points that President Becker brought up in his speech about how training would work over the summer, when terms technically start, the way that off-campus programming works in terms of our inability to pay people who are off-campus or studying abroad or are not currently enrolled in Grinnell College is something that is a little bit kind of in the ether. Like the one thing that I can say with certainty is that we cannot pay people who are studying abroad. But again, like, that is minorly limiting, I might say, in the point where, it would cause certain periods of time to be unable to be trained. However, I think it would be really up to our discretion as to when those periods of time might end, as long as they are reasonable in our interpretation and don't run afoul of what is arguably murky college policy on this area.
Yes, Gio Katai, or President of the Senate Katai.
Hey guys. So I've been thinking a lot about this thing during the past week. And I just want to challenge the idea that just because something hasn't been done frequently on this campus does not mean that it's not a good idea to pursue. Especially in light of the fact that I get the sense that we're all very passionate about like holding ourselves and our peers and our governing bodies accountable for institutional memory. And institutional memory shows that yes, cabinets traditionally have not been split because of these very valid concerns about like, well, you're going to be off campus, like how are you going to be qualified to come back and do this job? And just some things that I want to say are that I think the intent and the passion that the executive elects have for this incoming cabinet show that just like reaffirm how passionately they feel about these candidates and how they genuinely believe that like no one else could do the job better. And I can only speak for myself in saying that like I know I'm going abroad and I know it's going to be very difficult to communicate with people on this campus, very difficult to know like what the hell is even like going on this campus because I'm going to be in China for a whole semester and then come back and be in a position where I tentatively have to like run events for everyone on this campus. And that will be very difficult. But as Regina said, there is a lot coming explaining how those difficulties are going to be approached and addressed. But I just want to note that there are people at this institution or that have been in these positions that have held these positions for a whole year and they have still not fulfilled the job to the best of their ability to help students on this campus. And I'm not saying that directed at anyone. I'm just saying that like from my time here, there have been like going abroad has not been a factor into whether or not they can do their job. During my first year, I was a class ambassador. I worked with the current DOC at the time, who was Hannah Bogas. My training was not super engaging. It was not very outreach driven. It just did not reach up to the expectation that I had as a student as for what someone in a cabinet position would give. You know, this year, I've been involved in multiple things, and like now I'm directly involved in SGA, and I just see the inner workings of how there are people that hold these long-term positions that still don't engage in a way that's best with the student body, and that is not a reflection of whether or not they're on this campus. So the point that I'm trying to make is that if someone wants to get the job done, they will get it done, whether they're here at Grinnell College or whether they're in China for a semester or whether they're in France. And going abroad, first of all, is damn near a major requirement for someone in like a language program. Like as a Chinese major, I kind of have to study abroad if I want to graduate with this double major. But then it just comes down to like, if an individual wants to make something happen, then they will very much make something happen. And I can once again only speak for myself as a candidate, where I know I'm gonna make these things happen, and like I know that my peers are gonna do their best to make these things happen, but the faith that the upcoming executives have in us and the willingness to communicate and to form like new innovative ways of doing this job training, like they're not just appointing people in these positions just so that we can get them and that things can fall to a standstill, you know, like that is not what's happening at all, as shown by all the evidence and just all the supplemental things that have been created to bring this back to Senate to see what everyone else is like feeling the second time around. So those are just some points that I really feel passionate about. Like, if someone wants to get the job done, they're gonna get it done, whether they're here or whether they're abroad. And there are new ways to train people and to engage people that, yes, they have not been done frequently before, but we obviously have a group of upcoming leaders that are so passionate about finding new ways to make this work in a way that's gonna best benefit the whole entire student body.
Next we have Senator Stallings. Oh, never mind. Then Atra Mystic. Oh, okay, and AC Welch. Oh yeah.
I feel as if this entire conversation has drifted away from the specific point that we're discussing, which is the constitutionality. And I think later.
No, this is viability.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I kind of zoned out like a bit. Apologize. So maybe then, I guess my other point then is if we're going to discuss kind of whether this is viable, I would rather see the materials that you guys have and then question the materials, like knowing your plan fully, as opposed to talking abstractly about what may or may not happen.
Alright, sorry everyone, we've got a lot of names I'm taking down. But up next I did have AC Welch.
I want to thank Miles for his statement because I think this is, just because as this is like an unprecedented thing, I think it's good that we're examining it closely and making sure it's something we want to do and making sure it's in the best interest of students. I did want to address a couple of the points he made about ACE in the statement, and Selah can correct me if I'm wrong or thinks I'm not representing this right. Also, happy birthday to Selah. It's happening over spring break, but it's just the last Senate, so happy birthday. When I was ACE co-chair, we didn't start planning anything for the spring until winter break, and there's a lot of planning over winter break. But as far as what I needed to do in the fall before I was co-chair in the spring, was have a meeting with Selah to talk about what we wanted our budget to be, and then have a meeting with the treasurers to see if we could get that budget. And that was it. I think that's something that could be done fairly easily over message, email, FaceTime, Skype, whatever. And then those hours could be billed later. The other thing, I've talked to a few people about this, but I just don't want potential benefits of there being split term positions to be like swept aside. When I came in spring semester to cabinet, I felt like I was one of the only people with any energy in the cabinet. Most people were fighting each other by that point. They were like, we would sit down for meetings and like people would just be so exhausted they didn't talk. So like I think it could be. There are definitely like potential costs, but there are also like real benefits to people being in cabinet positions for only a semester, because we ask students to do these jobs. We are asking a hell of a lot of them, and so I think we could also like work on preventing burnout that way.
Senator Mendel, did I see your hand like a while back earlier? No. Okay. Then up next I had VPA-elect Wallach. You put your thing down. Are you all good? Okay. And then Senator De Vega.
so we've raised some very great points, some interesting methods, some creative things. Aside from all of it, and I believe that these people are very qualified to do their job. But the standing thing I sense that people have still some questions about is the training. And I just want to ask people that are knowledgeable about the topic, have you considered any creative methods to get people trained while they're on campus and get paid for it and non-concurrently? You could, if I can make a suggestion, maybe we could train them starting this semester and have split the time after spring break so that people are paid for their efforts and know how to do their job by the time we get here. And I think that would, I just want to put that out there. Have you considered it?
Senator Grinnell? Can we get a mic back? Thanks.
All right, so a few things. I want to echo some important points that I feel like have been made, just about how if we want to be as inclusive as we can to students who are studying abroad, then it's really important to think about how we would make that happen. And I mean, having split term positions is probably one of the only ways. And it's also important to think about how the college is making strides to push every student to study abroad at least once throughout their college career. And if SGA goes head to head with a college like that, we will lose. So I just don't think that I just want everyone to think about the implications of not allowing split term positions and how that would exclude an entire subset of students who want to, and a majority of students will study abroad. I also, regarding concerns for specific positions, I encourage you all to remember that that's what the confirmation process is for. And if you have specific concerns, split positions might be better for some positions than others, and how these specific cabinet positions and these specific cabinet candidates will plan to make that work. If you have those specific questions, and that's what the confirmation process is for. Also, clarification, we are not talking about the constitutionality, we're just talking about the viability, and considering the fact that there are 2 other discussion topics and 4 other confirmations, I want to motion to limit this debate to 15 minutes.
All right, I see a motion to limit the debate to 15 minutes, and do I see a second from Treasurer Galani? Yeah. All right. We'll do a vote up on this, just so we can have it all down and make sure that everyone does vote. So this is a motion to limit debate to 15 minutes. A is in favor, B opposed, and C abstaining. The poll is open now. All right, and that passes with 78% of the vote. And so we are limiting debate or discussion to 15 minutes. We're going to get a timer up on the big screen. But with that, we'll move on to our next person, which is Victoria.
Hello. Hi. First, I want to say thank you to Lana for having the courage to self-advocate for yourself in the public sphere. I know it's something that I'm feeling really nervous about right now. But I think when we're talking about viability, we also have to consider the specific situations that we are presented when we're considering this. And I can really only speak to my position as a concerts chair appointee. So Finn and I are the only 2 people who applied for this position. And I know that throughout the fall semester, Cassidy has asked a lot of longtime concerts members, rising 4th years, if they wanted the position or would consider applying for it. And a lot of them expressed that they would not be interested in taking on the position and did not apply. So in this situation, I don't really know if we don't consider
Finn and I as the appointees, like we then have to consider then what to do in this specific context. Ideally, concerts shared. I think it would be great to have one person, but this is also not the situation that we have.
BPSA elect. Yeah, we get a mic back to President Becker.
With the motion to limit debate, I just want to make sure that I'll have a chance to respond since I brought this forward before 15 minutes are over.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're definitely not part of this. The list is getting much smaller. But yes, BPSA elect anonymous.
Yeah, like I said, thank you, Miles, for your concerns. I just wanted to take the opportunity to address them one by one. First one was an anecdote and a reference to constitutionality, so thank you for those. Second, qualifying the strain on cabinet appointees as unnecessary should not be our prerogative. It's something they have signed up to do, and I trust that they understand the difficulties of the role. Also, the transition of first-year council to class ambassador is actually a good reason to have a split position, in my opinion, because they're two different sort of bodies of individuals in themselves. Third, a cabinet is a team. We will aim to establish strong cooperative relationships between both sets of cabinet appointees. Each pair of cabinet appointees is guaranteed to us a tangible commitment with actionable goals in terms of addressing continuity, relevance, and change, all of which are significant concerns. If anything, you can rest assured that the last 2 weeks of critical questions have allowed us to put more thought into this than we ever would have, and for that, thank you. 4, we've discussed establishing a skeletal structure of event planning and outreach during training. That would be, for example, enlisting events that we know are going to happen every year for ACE, for example, and that would sort of mitigate that problem to a certain extent. 5, yes, the rate of occurrence is daunting, but I am proud to say that we will be setting a trend and making history, if you will. 6, it is our responsibility as elected cabinet officers to shoulder the responsibilities we owe the 1,400 students on campus. I think the appointed cabinet members have a prerogative to execute, understand, and empathize with the student body, and I would argue that the visible enthusiasm that each one of them demonstrates greatly offsets their projected difficulty to connect with students. I agree that the cabinet's job is to represent, and I would urge you to consider having faith in our processes of recruitment. Thanks.
Senator Stallings.
I can send that to you if you want.
While we're getting the mic over to Senator Stallings, is there anyone else who raised their hand who has not yet made any comments or have any questions? Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So I have a couple of points, really quick. Just while we're on this subject, and I don't want this to get lost, on the fact that, as I've heard for a couple of positions, that only a few people applied. I really press the upcoming cabinet to think about what can be done better in that regard. What students are we not reaching? Why? I think these are all really important questions as it comes to this process. And if we don't want to find ourselves in the situation again where, luckily, I think we were lucky in that we had qualified candidates who were the only candidates, but I'm not so sure that's going to be the case in the future, and I think that's kind of a gamble. So I'd be interested to discuss that. It doesn't have to be today, maybe at a later time, but I'm definitely invested in knowing what the plan is on that. I also just want to address the idea that, like, some of the points that have been brought up by Miles, and by some of them, I mean all of them, they weren't brand new, and I really am pushing back against that because I do feel that sometimes my voice is lost in this room, especially with certain members sometimes, and not to challenge that, but I really just want to say that I said all of these things in reform committee, in meetings with the upcoming cabinet. All of these things have been said, and I really just don't like the suggestion that that should lose credibility because it's just now coming up, because that's not the case. And then on the point of the DOC position being split, I know that I spoke to my DOC my first year when I was involved in a racially motivated incident with a police officer when I was pulled over in Montezuma, and they were the only person that I really knew to talk to. And then they put me with the diversity officer. And I think I just want to clarify that maybe it's not often, and maybe it wasn't for you, an important relationship, but it is an important relationship to some people, that involvement that they get in their first few weeks and months here. I think that it's actually the most kind of precarious time. And so like when you think about how to keep those relationships going and how to keep those people here and retaining especially marginalized students, we need to think about those things, and I think that's really important. Thanks.
President Becker. So thank you everyone for your thoughts. I know I just kind of like shared like a block of thoughts with you all at the beginning, but like I appreciate hearing back from all of you. I know this is like a complex issue, but I appreciate like the discussion we're having. Just a couple of responses to some sentiments that I'm hearing in the room. The discussion of ensuring that like there will be a changeover in ideas and ways people approach the role. This is like, as someone who's worked with like the last 2 cabinets, this is something that I've heard as well. I know last year they had gone in during retreat in the fall and said we're gonna have retreat in the spring, you know, and we'll have a chance to kind of get everyone back together and we'll be able to reintegrate those that like change over the semester, and then that didn't happen. That was like one of the first things Summer told me, was to make sure that you have a winter retreat, and then we also didn't have a winter retreat this year. But the idea that like we will ensure that like transition happens, I think is not a new concept. I think it's something that I've heard before. And specifically to my anecdote that I provided in the first one, I provided that as an opportunity to give insight into an instance in which that was promised and it did not happen. I recognize that is only my experience, but it's my understanding that I feel, additionally, the discussion of people having done a poor job in the past despite being here for the entire year, that is partially the prerogative of the Senate to make those approvals and determine that the candidates are indeed fit for those positions, as well as the fact that I have concerns that moving forward, because a lot of this is, certainly none of this is about this specific instance, but rather like the future of student government, that if we have in the past appointed people who couldn't do the job for an entire year, I worry about then appointing people per semesters that also couldn't do it. I'm not sure that like, I feel like that is the quality of the candidates, not necessarily the nature of whether they do or do not go abroad. Thank you, Dylan, for bringing up the part about the ACE chair. I don't know a whole bunch about the ACE chair, or not certainly as much. But the burnout point, I will concede. I've indeed experienced that in the second semester. But in terms of, I think one thing I'm kind of concerned about is looking at third years who do decide to go abroad and singling them